Hey everybody, it is Saturday morning and we are going to take a trip around the world. Now, I used to start my around the world updates with my waterfall tank, but as most of you probably know by now, my waterfall tank is no longer here. And we have this amazing, awesome, fantastic koi pond instead. So I'm not going to go over a whole lot of detail with the pond. I want to just try to keep this as a generalized sort of update. If you want any detailed information on the pond, I do have videos about that, and I will be posting even more videos in the near future. And I just noticed this morning for the first time, look how green the walls are starting to get, especially on the left hand side there. That is definitely some serious algal growth, and we're getting that serious algal growth because we have some super serious lighting blasting down on this tank. That's a really highly powerful LED grow light, and that's how it's able to keep such a large area lit well enough to keep all these plants alive. The downside is it grows mad algae because it's pretty much like putting a small sun over top of my tank. So recent additions to the pond have been 4 new guppies. I put 2 yellow and blue tuxedos in. You can see one of them right there. And then I got 2 of these yellow ones. I also added 2, I don't even see them now. Oh, there's one. See the bright orange guppy? I added 2 of those. I can't remember what they are now, the name of them, but I kind of regret putting them in there because you almost can't even see them with the goldfish. I was trying to avoid some of the more orange colored fish. I was thinking about putting some red wag platies in there, but I opted against it just because of the same reason. I do have several blue wag platies in there though, and they look amazing when you get a little glimpse of them. I also added 2 mystery snails, and we are going to be adding some more nearite snails here in the near future. I've got a bunch of nearite snails in a tank in the other room. I was doing a breeding experiment on them, and they never did breed, so I'm done with that experiment. Now I've got about a dozen nearite snails that I need to find homes for. So I got my little intake all sorted out. That's all working nicely. We got just enough water splishing and splashing over here to keep everything nice and moist, so the moss will continue growing. You can already see I've got some really solid upward growth on the whatever, I can't even think of what this is called, stone crop. We've also got some new creeping jenny, and you can see the growth turning upwards on this already. I tucked it up under this log, and the roots are sort of tucked back here. And so hopefully that's going to flow out across the water there a little bit. We've got good solid new growth on my water sprite. You can see all this is new growth, all this is new growth. So this is rooting in and starting to develop. I also planted more of the creeping jenny right here. And again, already you can see, look how that's growing upwards towards the light. It already looks like it's planted and established. And that too will flow down and go into the water. Likewise, we got stone crop over here. The stone crop's already growing and rooted. We got new growth on this water sprite right here. So this little inflow, this little mountain spring, if you will, is going to look really good once it fully starts to grow in. I've also got a brand new shoot on my elephant ear waiting for this one to unfurl. So I removed the huge plant that was in this corner. That was untenable. Oh look, you can see my cherry barb over there swimming around. So I've also thought about putting some more cherry barbs in here, males and females, and maybe seeing if they breed. This is certainly enough space for them to move around. But I also took the pickerel rush out of that corner. I think the pickerel rush needs more light, and so I took another elephant ear, I put it in that corner. Of course, we've got the elephant ears in this corner, which are sending up new growth. These are both new leaves, and that one's looking awesome. So all in all, I cannot be happier with how this pond has turned out. Probably going to have to do a water change here in another couple of weeks. The tannin is starting to build up a little bit. I do like a nice tannin stained water. I think it looks beautiful, but there are limits. I also like to see my fish, and so at some point you need to get some of those tannins out of there and make it a little more cleared up. So there you go. That is a brief look at what's going on in the pond, although it was a little more thorough than I expected, but that's okay because this right now is my absolute pride and joy. I'm in love with this thing. So let us go ahead and out in the sun, and then that'll give us a little better look at some of the other tanks without so much glare on them. So starting here at my 29 miscellaneous, not a whole lot going on in here. I did finally get those black skirt tetras out of my quarantine tank. These are long fin black skirt tetras. And so they're in there. I put 4 of them in. There was already 1 black skirt tetra in the tank. I've got the white skirt tetras, as you can see, and then I've got the red and blue Colombian tetras in there too. Angelfish just chilling up in the corner. Tank's looking nice and lush and green. Everything's growing well. Got some new growth on the Anubias right there sticking out. So this tank is due for a water change maybe next Friday night when we do our action live stream on Fridays, because I do a live stream every Friday night and Sunday nights. Friday night is action live stream where we do tank maintenance and fiddle around and test water and do whatever. So that is Friday night, and then Sunday night is Sunday night Q&A, and we will just do a little more focused on sitting in front of the camera and answering questions and troubleshooting problems. And so if you've got any issues, problems, concerns, questions, whatever, check out my live stream on Sunday night. And of course you can also check out my live stream on Friday. I will certainly answer questions and stuff on a Friday. Even though I'm trying to do an action live stream, I'm always here to help. Moving on to my Gourami tank. Gourami tank's looking good. Just did a big water change on this one last night during my Friday night action live stream. Got in there, got the glass all wiped down, got the water changed, probably a 50 to 60% water change. Everybody was able to get a look at the pearl gouramis in there looking nice. I do not know what is on the lip of that one. It's white. It's been like that forever. I don't know if it keeps bashing its nose into the glass. It does not look like a fungal infection. I'm not sure what it is, but it has been like that for weeks and weeks and weeks now. I'm not really that concerned about it. If it starts to spread or I notice it starting to develop on other fish, then maybe we'll get in there and take some action. But in the meantime, everything in here is just ticking over like a clock. I guess I should have taken a few minutes to use the Deadly Windex and wipe down my exterior glass. And of course I'm joking when I say Deadly Windex. Windex is fine to use on your fish tanks. I've just gotten a lot of comments over the years of people acting as though I'm going to kill all my fish if I use Windex to clean my glass, so I jokingly refer to it now as the Deadly Windex. But don't take that seriously. Windex is perfectly fine to wipe your tanks down with. Don't pour it in your aquarium and you'll be okay. That's my rule of thumb. A little tiny bit of overspray gets in there, you got nothing to worry about. Don't pour Windex in your aquarium and you'll be okay. So, not a lot going on in the Gourami tank. Just did a nice big water change. Everybody's looking good. Tank's looking good. And so we are going to move along. Now we get to my 55. I also got in here and did a lot of work last night. And most of that work involved going through all this Anubias that has been uprooted and destroyed. It used to be attached to all these rocks down here. But this giant pleco down here that is way too big for this tank now has knocked loose and uprooted all of that Anubias. And so what I had to do after it was floating, it also got so much Java moss growing through it that I literally had to like get it in there and pull it out and pull the Java moss out. It's still in there. There's no way I got all the Java moss out of all that, so it will grow back. But in the meantime, once all the Java moss came off of it, it all just floated to the surface, and that's what this pleco used to hide under. And so I might have to get in there and make some sort of adjustment so I can get that back down on the bottom, or maybe just put some temporary flat rock in there that's elevated so the pleco can get underneath of it. Definitely needs a place to hide. Just lying out in the open like that is not good for a fish that likes to hide in dark places, so I'll need to do something about that. But otherwise, we got in here, we did a big water change. I already mentioned the Java moss and clearing all that out. Wiped the glass down both inside and out. I did use the Deadly Windex on this tank and it looks beautiful. Well, I mean, the tank itself may not look so good because of the plants and everything at the moment, but the water is pin sharp, the glass is nice and clear, the fish are happy, and I just need to get in here and we'll get this tank sorted out. I'm not really going to do anything with this tank until I get that pleco out of there. I do have somebody that wants that pleco, but unfortunately they have taken ill, and I was unable to meet with them the other day, and hopefully once they recover, I will be able to make arrangements and we'll get down there and get that pleco out of this tank. And once that pleco is out of this tank, we will then be free to start adding fish and changing it. I'm going to rescape it. We're going to do something different on the bottom, maybe change up the woodwork, maybe change up the plants, But this tank has got potential, and it will be going through some changes here in the fairly near future. But got to get this problem fish out of there first before we bother wasting our time doing any of that. So my 40 breeder, this is the final tank that we did some action live streaming on last night. And once again, got in there, did a big water change. I removed a bunch of the duckweed. I wiped all the glass down, and likewise got this tank looking pin sharp. Now, once again, the inside is a little grubby. I've got some cyanobacteria and some growth and stuff like that. But compared to what this tank looked like 6 months ago, this is looking great. I put some nearite snails in there. I put some Siamese algae eaters in there and some plecos. And I've just been kind of letting them work on the tank for me. And we're taking the slow, natural process of getting it cleaned up. So from time to time, I will get in there. I'll do a gravel vac, a light surface gravel vac. I don't scrunch it down into the gravel, but I do try to pick some of the mulm and stuff off of the bottom. This tank just has so many little dead spots and eddies and little places for the mulm to collect and catch and swirl that it, this was my first fish tank that I ever designed, and I learned a lot from it. And a lot of the things I learned from it is what not to do, ways to not have stuff just piling up everywhere. There's, as much flow as I've got in this tank, there's only so much it can do when you've got this many nooks and crannies and plants and everything. There's just lots of places for that detritus to collect. And so from time to time, I need to get in there and get that all cleared out. Otherwise, my angelfish is looking fantastic. Absolutely love the colors on this one. So this angelfish, with all of his earth tones and golds and beautiful colors, is basically just growing out right now, and is ultimately going to end up in this tank. This is my New World tank. I call it that because most of the fish in here come from either North, South, or Central America. I do have a few oddballs. I've got a spotted tilapia from West Africa back there. That's my beautiful Flo. Love her. She's a tad bit aggressive, but she's still a sweetheart. I love her. I've also got a big pleco in here. Well, the pleco I think is South American, so that doesn't count. I got a rainbow shark, which is Indonesian. And I've got a jewel cichlid, which is also African. So this is the blue sunfish, or the bluegill sunfish, and this fish is the reason that angelfish is not in this tank. This fish is just a little too big and a little too boisterous, and if you think it looks like crap and has spots all over it and it looks like it's got ick or something like that, it is indeed in rough shape, and that's why we're trying to get it out of the tank. The person I mentioned a while ago about the pleco is also going to take this fish off my hands. But again, I need to be able to get together with them, and unfortunately they have taken ill, so let's all hope for their speedy recovery, and we'll be able to get this big monster out of the tank, and once we do, I'll be able to move that angelfish over here. Otherwise, all the fish in this tank are pretty chill. They just kind of hang out, do their thing, and it's not really until feeding time that the action really starts in this tank. For all the fish in here, and for the larger fish that are in here, it really is a fairly docile, subdued tank. Not a lot of activity going on in there. Just under the normal course of things. As a rule, most of you all see this tank when I'm throwing food in there, or it's at night and I'm walking around shooting videos and stuff, and there's a lot more feverish activity going on in there under normal circumstances. So this is what I generally get to enjoy when I'm looking at the tank. Just a nice, calm, chilled out tank. You can see my shark swimming there a little bit, coming out below my bluegill. And I don't know where the jewel cichlid is. The jewel cichlid tends to get bullied around a little bit. It's fairly small, so it tends to stay in the back and lay low. But otherwise, this tank is all peachy keen and up and running, doing fine. No stress, no need to worry. Probably going to be doing a water change on this one next Friday too, on next Friday's Action Live stream. So make sure you're subscribed and you won't miss it. Snail tank is just snail tanking, just growing snails out in there. Not a whole lot to talk about with that one. My native tank, and I call this native tank because it did have all native fish in it at one point, native to this area. Well, caught from this area. They might be invasive to this area, but I did catch them around here locally. Eventually, I wound up throwing a bunch of red wag platies in there, and while they are North American fish, they're more like down in Mexico, maybe southern Texas. They're not really a fish that's going to be around here, but they are North American fish, and so whatever, I would still just call this my native tank. So just ticking over. I don't do a lot with this tank. You can see it just sort of sits there. It's got so much stuff in it you can't even really see the fish in it anymore. The main thing it's got in it is this root ball that I collected up from the reservoir one day. It's an awesome, huge, massive piece of wood that's amazing, and it's being overgrown by this water sprite. Believe it or not, that is water sprite. I really need to get in there and do something with that. That is so thick. I need to just pull that giant mass out and let all of the smaller ones start doing their things, because you can see it's rooted to the tree. I mean, it's growing right off of the tree stump and everything right here. And so that's what you get if you're just patient and you just put something in your tank and you just let time take its time, and boom, you got that eventually. I also have a fairly significant amount of light shining right down on it, so that helps. And if we want to follow this, the roots down here, goes up, goes around, comes all the way around here, comes around here, goes up here, goes all the way across here, comes down there, wraps all the way around there, and there's the end of it right here. So that's the pothos plant that is in my native tank. That plant's going to be all around the world here pretty soon, but I'm going to let it keep growing. I'm going to see how much I can grow it out and see how far I can get it to go. I'll loop it back around here and bring it back down. I'm going to go for 50 feet, see if I can get 50 feet of pothos plant growing. I think that would be fun. Anyway, moving on. Looking at my 125-gallon tank. We sometimes call this my discus tank, and I sometimes call this my 125 Daryl. My gourami tank is Larry. This is my 125 Daryl. That's my other 125 Daryl. I'm sure some of you get that. Not much to talk about in here. I actually feel a little guilty for as in love with these discus as I am, and as much as I love them, I have been so fascinated by my pond that I have been apologizing to my discus for not paying so much attention to them anymore, because I've been so wrapped up in enjoying that pond. So my fears of these discus growing up to be really big and being too much for this tank, I was thinking 10 full-grown discus in this tank might be a bit much. But it does not look like they're growing really fast. I'm going to have what a lot of people will refer to as stunted discus, which is fine with me. They're going to be nice and healthy. Everything will be fine. They're just not going to be maxed out in size. They're going to be much more reasonable and easy to manage. So again, I'm not looking to break any world records on how big I can grow my fish. I just want them to be colorful and vibrant and healthy, and these awesome sure are. I mean, they're just fantastic looking. Absolutely love these discus. So some of these turquoise, these went in later, and the blue diamonds you can see were already considerably bigger when I put the turquoise in, which are the ones with the red and black on them. These have not grown nearly as fast as the blue ones, and I've got a couple of these discus that have stayed fairly small, and I think are going to turn out more or less to be the runt. But you can see some of them have gotten considerably bigger. And they don't all even hang out in the same place at the same time. So the discus in this tank are just awesome. Absolutely love these fish. I really, again, I'm feeling guilty by spending so much time paying attention to the pond that I haven't been enjoying my discus nearly as much as I should be. So my Tanapoma that was in here, we've probably had a little glimpse of him swimming around. I haven't been paying too much attention to what we're seeing in the background, but I do have a big Tanapoma acutorostra in here, and was having issues with him. He was bloated. He had some issue on his side where a scale had come off and he got some kind of infection or something, and I'm happy to say we sorted all of that out. He is back to normal. He looks good. His infection went away. He's no longer bloated, and I'm quite satisfied that that Tanapoma is going to keep on sticking around with us, because he is pretty much at or over their maximum, shelf date, And so for him to pass away would not, he wouldn't owe me anything. I've had that fish for many, many, many years. And so again, he's sort of past his expiration date anyway, and we're just going to have to wait and see how that all plays out in the long run. And I just got a glimpse of my catfish. I do have a Synodontis catfish in this tank, but it is not outgoing like my other one is, or was. I did have a Synodontis in this tank a long time ago that died, and so I replaced it with the same kind, same species, and it's just not outgoing like my other one is. I often forget it's even in here. It's getting pretty big too, so I do have a significant catfish on the bottom of this tank, in addition to the 3 chocolate zebra plecos I have in this tank. So 4 different catfish living on the substrate down there in the bottom of this tank, but they all seem to get along well enough, and I don't really have any issues. If you're wondering, the temperature on this tank right now is 79.4 degrees. A lot of people ask me what temperature I keep these fish at. That lower temperature is one of the reasons they're not growing so fast. If you want to max out their growth, you crank that temperature up. It speeds up their metabolism. You give them more food. They convert more fish food into fish, and you get bigger fish. So I've got the temperature down a little bit lower. I only feed them once a day, just like regular old fish. I'm not trying to max them out. I don't want them to be full grown in this tank. That would just be too much for this tank. So if they get mostly full grown, if I get them up to 5 or 6 inches, that will be plenty big enough. They will make quite the statement in this tank at 5 or 6 inches. I do not need the full 8 or 9 or whatever they can get to eventually. So alright everybody, that is my 125 Darrell. Moving on to my 20-gallon deep sand bed tank, or deep bed tank. Not much to talk about in here. My GBR in there is still looking amazing. I'm pretty sure this is a male based on the way the first 3 or 4 spines on the dorsal fin stick up proud like that. They're way higher than the rest of them. Nice little look at my Endler there. I don't even remember what kind that is. I don't remember putting one in there that had so much green on it, but that's fantastic looking. I wonder where that came. I wonder if that bred in the tank. That is an awesome looking guppy. I don't remember putting that green one in there. Well, yeah, I'm glad it's in there because that's amazing looking. So I got some red wag platies in here. Got some other guppies in this tank. Can never have too many guppies. I love my guppies. And then over here we've got a lot of these ember tetras. Those are full grown. And those are ember tetras. Really, really nice looking little fish. They stay small. They stay smaller than neons. So don't try to keep them in any tank with anything that would eat something like a neon, because those ember tetras would certainly go away pretty quickly. So down to my quarantine tank. I got all those fish out of here. We saw at the very beginning of the video, or almost the beginning of the video, the black skirt tetras that were in here are now in my 29. And I always keep a few resident fish in my quarantine tank just to make sure it stays alive and cycled and functioning. I know that's not necessary, but I just kind of see this as another fish tank, and why not just keep some fish in it? So I've usually got a couple of platies or guppies or something swimming around in this tank, and right now that's what we've got. We've got Mom and 2 of her offspring red wag platies swimming around in this tank. If you hadn't noticed, I got lots of red wag platies. You buy a male and a female of a live bearer, and in no time at all you got all the fish you will ever want. It's a lifetime supply. Alright, Butterbean's tank. I am not going to get in here and turn the light on in the front. Well, yeah, I guess I can. It's just a matter of reaching down and getting the switch turned on. That'll give you a little better look at what's going on in there. May as well, if I'm going to shoot a video of it, might as well let you see what's going on in there. And what is going on in there is not a lot. I haven't done much with this tank in quite a while. So you can see the water's starting to get a little stained. Not terribly. This tank doesn't build up tannin too quickly. The only source of tannin it has is the roots of the Anubias. I don't have any woodwork in this tank because this tank used to have much saltier water in it. I kept this at a fairly mid to high range brackish level of salinity, and wood does not last very long in salty water, and so I never put a piece of woodwork in this tank, but perhaps I should. So the only real concern I have in this tank, you've probably noticed this pigtail swaying in the breeze right here, is that stupid hair algae. I don't know what it is. I've gotten most of the hair algae out of this tank. You can see the tank looks a whole lot better in terms of growth and coverage and stuff that was growing over everything. I used to have black, growth on everything. It looks great now. Everything in there looks great, except I've got this streamer of hair algae that just won't go away. So, time for a little bit of maintenance, get in there and do a little bit of something. But I feel like we just got in there and did a pretty big water change not too long ago. And so that's it. We'll see if we get one last close look at Butterbean without scaring him too much. He's probably wondering why I keep pointing that camera at him and not putting food in there, because usually when I'm doing this, I'm also putting food in there. He's a smart little guy. Or gal, I have no idea whether it's male or female. I just refer to him as him. And I don't think he's going to get too upset about that. I definitely like the addition of the Anubias. Watching him swim through there and swim underneath the leaves. He often will hang out right directly underneath of a leaf and just sort of sits in the shade, same way you or I might sit under the shade of a tree on a sunny day. It's kind of neat to just see him in there chilling out, doing that kind of stuff. So, alright everybody, that is it. We are back to the beginning, but I will show you one final thing. This here is my new laptop. Spent a lot of money on this, but it was well worth it because I can now connect up my good camera and do some proper live streaming. Last Friday, or, what was it, 21st? October 21st? So if you check out October 21st, Friday night action live stream, that will be my first live stream that I did with my new equipment versus my tablet that I used to use. The tablet was nice and simple and easy and convenient, and it did have a certain quaint simplicity to it. But overall, the picture quality and the buffering and all that, it was just terrible. So I invested a lot of money in some new equipment. Fear not, it is tax deductible. So there is that at least. But we're going to have much, much higher quality live streams from now on. So again, if you're interested in that, or you want to do some troubleshooting, you just want to get to know me a little better, you want to hang out at my fish room on a Friday night, whatever your desires are, hit me up on a Friday or a Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot of fun, do some good live streaming, and hopefully you will enjoy yourself. Maybe sign up for membership. You get access to a private live stream on Wednesday nights if you're a member. Other than that, I'm going to say thank you for taking this trip around the world with me. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Make sure you subscribe, ring that bell, do all that YouTube stuff, and I will see you real soon on the next one.